once we get our texture somewhere near to what we think might work, we need to test it. So I have APCD permanently running when I'm working on textures, and so we'll just cut this into a square texture. It's not going to match up seamlessly yet because I haven't done the sides, but it'll give us an idea of what it's going to look like or start looking like. So I'm just going to crop it down, and it needs to be a size that APCD and links is going to allow. So at the moment I've got a very irregular size photo, so we'll go fixed ratio 1:1, so I can just drag up a box in a square and crop it. And I'm going to need to save this as a maximum of 1024. We'll size it to 1024. It's actually much too much of a close-up, actually, this texture, to make a texture if it's only showing a foot or so of grass, whereas our texture wants to be covering a good few square yards. So what you'd have to do is repeat this in Photoshop, make more copies of it, and then blend the copies together to get a texture to the right scale, and then resize it again. But for demo purposes, this will have to do for now. So I just need to save that now and put it into the game, into APCD. So I'll call this new grass and save it as a TGA. bit. Okay, and now I need to go into APCD and load it in and see what it looks like. So I've created a texture called seamless for now. You can use it any texture to put it in. Make sure you haven't got any mids and fars, because you won't see it properly if you've left some mids and fars of another texture in. So I'm just going to find this, which is in my pictures. And there's the new grass open. So we've got it in here. Okay, save. I just need to select all and apply it. So you can already see we've got a bit of a line effect here and across here. That's probably at the moment mostly where I haven't got the edges matching up properly yet. So, but it gives you an idea of what it will look like when we get a bit closer. That it's not too bad, but we can get rid of these. It just takes time and work to get rid of these lines that will appear on our texture. But if you want to see what's causing the lines, the way to do it is this. So we go to terrain face, select our texture coordinate mapping, and we turn on the gizmo and center it. Where are we? Move center. I haven't selected it, sorry. Select it, turn on the gizmo, move to center. Right, now I can deselect the area, and that will highlight just the one texture. So we can actually zoom in and see it's actually, this dark area is not what I thought, the edge here. It's in about a quarter of the way in, and a quarter of the way from the bottom there's another one here. So we can then look at our texture, and we know that a quarter of the way in, it's this bit here that's too dark, and this bit here. So I can see the line there. So if I get my clone brush again, I'll need to be on the full layer. I haven't flattened this image yet, so I need to flatten it down so I can work on both the brown and the green now, as we've made it combined. So if I just take a bit of this colour here, brush it in there, and get rid of this darker area along this bit there, I can now save it over the one we did before. Flip back to the APCD, and all I've got to do is go back into my texture, edit material, add it again. It'll ask me to overwrite it, say yes. Click save, and it'll immediately change. And we can see the changes, and that's a lot better. I've still got a line, but this time it is down the edge, which we haven't dealt with yet. And this is how I work on my textures to get rid of the cloning, because you can see exactly what's happening, and by putting the gizmo round, you can see where in the texture the problem is. It's very hard without it to know what part of your texture, when you're just looking at a texture like this, you can't really see any problems. Very difficult to know what the problem is. But by putting it through APCD at the same time, you can immediately tell, I've got a dark line here, it's along that right edge, that's where I need to work. So now to do the edges, you've learnt the technique on the panorama for doing edges, so it's the same thing. We need an offset. So if I go to my filters and select the offset, actually I need to see what size this image is first, because this is not the 1024 size. Oh yes, it is. I've shrunk it, haven't I, to save it. So I need to offset it by half of what it is. That will bring the edges into the middle. So I'll go to offset, filter. I'll go to offset, and I'll select 512 in that horizontal and 512 in the vertical. And that has shifted the top and bottom and the left and right to the center. So we've now got a cross line through our texture, and this is where the textures are joining at the moment. They're not going to now, they're going to join on these sides. We know these edges are fine because they're the ones that were in the middle before we offset it. So if we get rid of the join along here, it should join perfectly. So I can actually see this dark shadowy part along there. So if I just clone the middle out and a bit of that out and this side, a bit of a line there, and there, got a bit of a line there. So I'm just using my eye to see where the problems are. That'll do. So if we just save it again, back into APCD, load it in, and save. And now I've got a line along here that's appeared. Now that's about a bit less than a quarter of the way down the texture, so it's back into Photoshop, and there's the line there. Might start using a smaller brush now. So I'll just get rid of that line. Save again. Load it into APCD. And this part of the process can take quite a while, just getting your texture perfect, but eventually it'll come together. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Already there's a bit of a pale blob here that's probably a bit too large, which is causing a bit of tiling down there. But it's starting to get there. And the final, once we get it fairly okay, you can create mids and fars to get rid of the last bit in the distance. You won't notice the tiling so much close up. You tend to notice it as it's going into the distance. So as you can see, as I zoom out, when we're zoomed in, you don't really notice the joins here. But as we get further out, you can see these lines appearing. So there's a bit of a dark line down on this side. So again, I'd need to go in. It's probably caused by these dark shadows here, and I'll need to just clone out a bit of that, and save it again. It's tedious, but eventually you get there, and that's pretty much how I work with my textures. So and that's better still.